An important element of my workflow is to play with the curves tool and with the histogram tool in Silverfax Pro to change tonal relationships, which is part of my vision. So, for example, if I want to have a darker sky, then I can just play with the curves tool to darken the sky a little bit and to merge it with the final result. At the same time, I'm also using the histogram tool in Silverfax Pro 2 to make sure that any tonal zones that I'm missing in my image can be added later on. And Silverfax Pro is a very good tool to analyze your tonal range. So I'm going to demonstrate this first, starting with the curves tool with this image. For example, you have this image of the building, and let's say that you want to have a more darker sky with this. So what you can do then is to create a duplicate layer of this image, and usually I would create a third layer, and I use the third layer as an inactive layer, so I can do a comparison of before and after. So I'm only going to work with the background layer and with the background copy, which is the second layer. So I'm going to add a mask for that. And then I'm going to deactivate the second layer, and I'm going to play with the background layer only. And I want to darken the sky. So I'm going to image adjustment and then to curves. So now I'm going to look at the sky only, because what I'm going to do later on is to mask out the building. So I'm going to merge the sky in my final result. So you don't have to look at the other parts of the image. Just look at the sky only. For example, if you want to have a little bit of a dark sky, then you can do something like this. If you do this, then you are cutting off the highlights, so this is quite extreme. So, well, I'm going to be very subtle with this. So I'm just cutting a little bit of the highlights. And if you do this, then you will have, well, almost grayed out flat sky. And if you do this, for example, you go down and drag the curve downwards, then you would see that the image is going to, and especially the sky, is going to be darker. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to stand here with my mouse. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to drag the curve down so that the sky gets a little bit darker. Well, you see that the contrast is a little bit too high because there are too many highlights. I'm going to cut off some parts of the highlights. You can do that with like this. Then I'm going to push back the blacks a little bit, something like this. So if you deactivate the preview, then you can see the before version, and this is the after version after I've played with the curves. So this is a good way to darken or to brighten parts of the image by using the curves tool. So I've darkened the sky a little bit, click on OK. Then I'm going to activate the second layer again, going to stand on my mask, and then I'm going to load the selection that I made from the sky. So I'm going to merge the sky only in my final result, and I'm going to mask out the building that I don't want to have affected. So now I'm going to use the gradient tool for that. I'm going to merge the sky into my final result like this. So I'm going to deselect it. So what you see here is the sky that I have darkened with the curves tool in this layer, and I've merged that in my final result with the neutral version of the building. If you want, and if you're not happy with this result, with this temporary result yet, then you can still play with the curves tool by going through the original background layer, stand on there, and then just go to image adjustment and curves again. And now you can just play with a little bit more with the curves tool like this to have it even darker, something like this. And then just click OK again. So this is a good way of changing the tones or the tonal zones and changing the tonal relations overall in an image by using the curves tool. So much for the curves tool that I always use to let's say change the tones for certain parts of the image only, and I use it in combination with the masks and the selection tool, of course. Now I'm going to demonstrate another tool that I use quite a lot in my black and white workflow, and it's a tool that's built in the SilverFX Pro 2 plugin. And it's the histogram in SilverFX Pro 2, and I'm going to use that on this image. And I'm going to use this tool, this histogram tool, to determine if the tonal range that I'm trying to cover in my black and white photograph is covering the complete range, because that's a very important aspect of good black and white photography. You always need to make sure that you cover a complete tonal range. And with complete, I mean all the tones ranging from tonal zone 0 up to tonal zone number 10 should be available in any good black and white photograph. And the histogram tool in SilverFX Pro 2 is a very good tool to analyze if your image is covering the complete tonal range. So I'm going to demonstrate this with this image. So I'm going to go to histogram, then I'm going to click on, let's say, tonal zone 10. Well, what you see here is that tonal zone 10 isn't available, isn't present in my black and white photograph, because there's nothing highlighted in the image itself. So I'm going to go to tonal zone 9, like this. And you see that even tonal zone 9 is just partly covered, or not covered at all in my image. So basically what you see here is that only tonal zone 8 is covered as the most brightest part of my image, which is not good at all. So I want to add tonal zones 9 and 10 at least to my image. But before I do that, I'm going to check the other tonal zones first. So tonal zone 8 is present in my image. Tonal zone 7 is also present. 6 is present. 5 is present. Number 4 is present. And you can just see all the stripes in your image. Number 3 is present. Number 2 is present. Number 1 is present. And tonal zone number 0 is also present. So the only things missing in my images are tonal zones 9 and 10. So I'm going to add tonal zones 9 and 10 to my image. So I'm going to cancel this because I only use SilverFX Pro 2 in this case to determine and to analyze my tonal range. So I'm missing tonal zones 9 and 10 in this image. So what I'm going to do is to again create a duplicate layer and another one to do a comparison of before and after. So I'm going to use the active layer only, which is the background copy, or the second layer. I'm going to add the mask to that because I'm going to add tonal zones 9 and 10 to the image, but only in specific parts of the image, so not to the whole image, because you need to know in advance where you want to place the tonal zones 9 and 10. Well, if you would look at this image, then I would suggest that you would add the missing tonal zones 9 and 10 to the sky part of this image, and not to the building part of this image. But it depends on your type of subject, of course, and on the personal style as well. But in this case, I'm going to add tonal zones 9 and 10 to the sky. So this is how I'm going to do that. So I've already created the mask. I'm going to the original background layer, then go to image, adjustments, curves. And what you see here is a big, well, gap. And this gap in this histogram, that's caused because the tonal zones 9 and 10 are missing. So what I'm going to do then is do something like this. I'm going to move the curve all the way up to here, approximately. So this should cover tonal zones 9 and 10. I'm going to play with this a little bit, make sure not too much of the darker tones are lost. So I'm going to push back the curve here a little bit. And I'm going to add a little bit more highlights like this here. So when I do something like this, then I think that I have tonal zones 9 and 10 represented in this image. So this is before, this is after. Okay, I think this should look good. Click OK. I'm going to activate the second layer, which should be my final result. Going to stand on the mask. I'm going to load the selection of the sky in this case because I've changed the highlights and added tonal zones 9 and 10 to the sky in this case. So load the selection of the sky. Again, I'm going to use the gradient tool, and then I'm going to add that part of the image, which is the sky, to my final result. I'm going to deselect it. Now, when I now look at the histogram here, then you would see that the gap is gone. So it looks like the complete tonal range has been covered up from tonal zone 0 to tonal zone 10. Now I'm going to remove this one. I'm going to flatten this image, and I can take a second look again in SilverFX Pro to make sure that the complete tonal range has been covered. So I'm opening SilverFX Pro again, going to the histogram, and I click on tonal zone 10, and you see that tonal zone 10 is now present here. And the same goes for tonal zone 9. So tonal zones 9 and 10 that were missing in my previous version are now available and present in my image. So my objective of having a complete tonal range has been achieved here. So this is how I use the curves tool and the histogram tool in SilverFX Pro to come up with the black and white photograph that is looking good and covers a complete tonal range.